Hello. All right, my name's Andrew, and this is a 1930 Talbot 90. It's a straight six, 2.3. This car has been pretty much hand-built from the ground up, all fresh, so the engine is all new, and it runs like a new car from 1930. It's modeled after what was known as the PL series of cars that were raced in Brooklands that year. So I'll show you how you get in. Easy as pie, no door required. So, yes, that's for the ladies. Right. So, yeah, and it's an interesting car in the sense that when you start it, it doesn't really have a key. You just turn it to its start and charge position, and then you press the starter button.
This is the one you took to New Zealand, wasn't it?
Yes, it is. And that's it. So it has a pre-selector gearbox, which means that it's kind of like a precursor to the automatic. It's got a box that has about 4 clutches inside it. It's got 4 clutches inside it and one for reverse. And what you do is you set the gear you want to go into, and then you press the clutch. And that's me in first. Then you do that, and that's you in second. Back to neutral.
Unicyclic gearbox, is that the idea?
I don't know. I don't.
It should be a Lancaster.
Yes, that's the the gearbox was used in some military vehicles, so that's probably the same thing. The Wilson pre-selector gearbox, it's called. So, yeah, this car has been on quite a few vintage rallies, and it's a real pleasure to drive. A little rough in traffic, so, and the spare. This is the boot. As you can see, and then this is actually the fuel tank right here, and that's the filler.
What's the wee thing on top of that? For your speedo?
Yes. Yeah, a GPS. That's a GPS for the rally computer that goes in it when it's in the races. So, yeah, 1930 Talbot 90.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Very much.
It's interesting that the Talbots actually outran Bentleys and other large marques at Le Mans, just because they were such smooth running and efficient cars. The engines were nearly half the size. The Talbots were called invincible because they were so reliable that they were the first car to achieve 100 miles in 1 hour. That's driven 100 miles in an hour, so over 100 miles an hour the whole time for an hour. Yeah, not just over 100 miles an hour. Now, this is the man behind it, George Roche.
So his father started as a bicycle repairer in the Swiss Alps, and then went on to look after, be a specialist, looking after one or two of the French, the many millions of French cars that were out at the time. And having come from, and he said that he was engineering with his father from the age of 8. And having this background meant 3 things actually. The first was, as a sort of German-speaking French person, he could go and study at all the great French factories. And he went and studied at Renault, that was one of the finest at the time. The second was that he realized that for any car, for it to be successful, it needed to be able to be driven around the Swiss Alps. So all the cars that he designed, all the engines, he would build them, drive to Switzerland, have his summer holidays, and then take it back to London, where he could, and having fully tested it. So this was the man who designed it. He designed the factory, he designed the engine, he chose the people. So he was just that he believed in the simplicity of everything, and that he would not brook workarounds. And this made him, beloved by all the people in the factory, but all the bosses, all the money people, all the rest of it,
Yeah.
he just did not listen to them. So he was very much loved in the factory.
Interesting about his engine design was that it's one of the first overhead valve pushrod engines, kind of precursor to the modern, standard engine that we all know and love. When I'll go on to talk about the 1445. Yeah. Okay, when he finally made it to Talbot, the company was suffering. They didn't have a good product line, and they didn't have new tooling. They had just had this old factory with a lot of sort of obsolete machinery. But he repurposed all that machinery in order to create his vision of the simple, reliable, high-performing car. That was the Talbot 1445. Everything pretty much was made in the factory from scratch. They didn't buy out, or buy in, I should say, a number of parts, except for the distributors. Prop shaft runs through a heavy-duty tube. They use this on high-performance cars. Even the new Corvette, I believe, has one. And what it does is it mates the rear axle directly to the gearbox, so you don't get any twisting when the power is applied. So you get a more rigid handling. Yes, I guess you would say. So specifically, he says the torque energy is held in the drivetrain and then dispatched back into the engine through the tube of the chassis, because any power it uses, it leverages it and gives the engine more efficiency. And that's a regular kind of Delco distributor with points. It's 2 sets of points, 1 set for 3 cylinders each, alternating. This car does not have a generator, so to speak. It used to be on the previous cars, you had a dynamo mounted right about there. There's some gear work in there that comes off the cam. And so that's what they did. But George Roche came up with a system where he had a large motor called a Dynastart, and it's bolts to the front of the engine block and attaches, the drive gear from the Dynastart. And these literally weigh like 40 kilos, don't they? Yeah, anywhere from 30 to 40 kilos. The gear coming out of the Dynastart goes right into the crank of the engine. And on the earlier cars and the smaller cars, it was a 12-volt system. And that's why Talbots were known as being so silent, because they didn't really have a traditional starter. Instead, it just went boom and started right off the front of the engine. Then, after the engine was running, that Dynastart became the dynamo and provided power to the battery, which was controlled via a cutout whenever voltage got too high. So then, shortly after, George kind of got backed into a corner with this because he really liked the design, but as the engines got bigger, they got harder to crank, and batteries of the day weren't strong enough to crank a 3-liter, for example. And the compression ratios were higher, he wanted more performance. So he came up with a 24-volt conversion switch. And what happens is you press the starter button, and there's a little pole that switches the batteries from parallel to serial. And that doubles the voltage, because I should have said you had to put 2 batteries in it. Yeah, and that doubles the voltage. And so now you've got 24 volts, full amperage going to the front of the car, starting the engine, and then you let off the starter, and it immediately converts back to 12 volts, so all your lights and everything work. I wired up one of those once. Yeah, it was an adventure. It worked. Yes, it did. So, but they say now actually today's batteries are strong enough where they could handle the amperage and could work 12 volt all the way. So, but that was his elegant solution for charging and starting in the same unit.